Career North Star. Welcome to our Roundtable series. Today we're going to talk about soloist and team player, two of the 5 key attributes of being a great professional, really for anybody, but especially for early career professionals. I brought along with me, as always, Jessica and Bridget to walk us through some of the key components of those 2 attributes of being a soloist and being a great team player. I want to take a couple minutes and talk a little bit more about that, what that is. I guess as you kind of look at it, you could say, well, Al, it's sort of self-explanatory. A soloist, you're like by yourself doing things. Yes and no. The example that I would give to you is when you're in school and you're studying for a test. Typically, you would be, say, in a study group of some sort, and you'd have a group of people or classmates who you're working with and you're studying with. But when it's all said and done, there's one person in front of that exam, and that's you. You take ownership and you take accountability for the good or for the bad with it, but you own it. That's a soloist in school. In business, it's very much the same thing. What leaders and peers love to see is someone who takes ownership of a task, not a task taker, but ownership of a task. Even if something is uncomfortable for you. Bridget has a great saying, get uncomfortable, be comfortable with getting uncomfortable, right? And so it's okay if you go and you stretch yourself and you go find projects and assignments where you are the soloist, not listening for what task can I do, but what can you own? That's a brilliant soloist, because then when you deliver on that promise, that builds your trust, that builds your credibility, and that builds that trust and credibility in the context also of a team. You see, the second attribute is working collaboratively and brilliantly in a team in a dynamic environment. You see, especially for early career professionals, when you're trying to establish your credibility and build trust with others, it can be hard. Sometimes you get sort of pigeonholed or couched into a specific role on a project, right, or in an initiative, and that's all you are, and that's all people see you as. Well, to us, the way that we look at it is a team player in a dynamic environment allows you, gives you permission, if you will, to expand those horizons beyond just the scope of the work people tell you you're supposed to do. You then seize on opportunities as a soloist working in a team so that your role can evolve over time in that team, and you can deliver excellence as a part of that team in a variety of different ways. Sometimes you might be the subject matter expert. Sometimes you might be the note taker. Other times you might be even the one who's getting coffee or grabbing the shovel. That's okay, as long as you grow in each opportunity, you deliver on that opportunity, trust is then increased on the part of the rest of the team. And then you'll see they start to throw other opportunities at you. And then that intersection of opportunity and trust and credibility, from that comes growth, because you're taking on other elements or items that are outside of your comfort zone, but you're learning, you're building, you're delivering. Now people are like, wow, you can do this and that and this and that. Opportunities and growth come to you as part of being in a dynamic environment in a team. So don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself in that, but in fact, go out, go get more, and go be a brilliant soloist inside of that team. Now, working collaboratively obviously is a key to all of this, right? You have to be able to play nice with everybody else. So they start to develop that trust. So you build that credibility. So you get fit in that organization or in that team. And then where opportunity and growth comes in. So what I'd love to do is, if we could, Jessica, let me turn it over to you. Talk a little bit more about that sort of soloist mindset and mastering that, if you will.
Absolutely. Mastering the ability to work independently, being a true soloist, is one of the most powerful accelerators of professional growth. So I think that no matter where you are in your career or what your goals look like, you have to first and foremost be comfortable working independently by yourself. And not just comfortable, but really good at it. So that means knowing how to put your head down, focus, and do whatever it takes to deliver something in terms of time, cost, and quality. So teams succeed when every person brings their best, and that only happens when people take personal accountability and ownership over what they're working on. Accountability means owning your work, even when something could have gone better. It means not blaming someone else or pointing to a circumstance when you get tough feedback. What accountability really does is it also helps you build trust, because people know they can count on you. You work hard, you deliver, and you don't make excuses. If you're early in your career, or even further along in your career, but stepping into a new role, for example, ask for a solo project. As Al said, I encourage you to do the same. You know, you don't always have to ask for permission. Get your hands on something, because you learn so much by doing that, but own it and fully own it confidently. On the other hand, as a leader, you should say to that person, to that team member, it's yours, go own it. And if they need your help, you're there for them, but you're not micromanaging along the way. You should encourage that soloist approach and then make yourself available to them if they need you. Let them know you're there for them. Now, through the solo contributions, you'll hone your craft, develop discipline, and build credibility. So one, honing your craft. No matter your role or the industry that you're in, you should keep refining your skills. You'll figure out what you're good at and what needs work by working on something independently. And when you take a task from start to finish, you become a problem solver. And what that does is it builds confidence. When you prove to yourself that you can do really, really hard things, it builds confidence. And then the second piece is it develops discipline. So discipline is what carries you when maybe the motivation isn't there. It's like that quiet engine behind the consistency and reliability. You have to be dependable no matter what. If you're early in your career, if you have 30 years of experience, discipline means that you meet deadlines, you follow through, and you show up over and over again. As a soloist, you won't always have someone checking in or nudging you forward, and you should not need that. So your ability to have the discipline to get something done on your own is hugely important. And then lastly, you'll build credibility from owning something and doing a really good job. Ask for those solo projects, as I said. Build your credibility through leading solo projects. And before you lead bigger initiatives or collaborate, I think in a larger way, maybe with other teams, you have to know yourself, and your leader needs to know that you can deliver on your own. So those solo wins build your reputation. They build credibility. When people see that you can execute independently, they'll trust you. And then in the long term, credibility earns influence. It's what lets you shape decisions and take on bigger roles. So being a soloist is very important. Bridget, I'll turn it over to you.
I think the biggest takeaway from what you just said about being a soloist is you have to have that discipline and that drive in yourself. And I think a big part of that is understanding the bigger common goal that you're working towards. And so asking good questions that are, pointed at what the team is trying to do or what your organization is trying to do is really important. And then I think the other part of that is understanding what else your team is working on is also super important, because you can work on your own and be a great soloist, but then a lot of times that end deliverable is also dependent on other people that you're working with, whether it's a school project or something at work or something that you're doing personally. So I'd love to jump in and talk about what it means to be a team player, but also a team leader, and how everything that you said about being a soloist ties in so nicely. So you can be a great soloist, but then tie it all in and be a fantastic team when you combine forces with other people. So I think the first piece of that is, how do you transform all of those individual efforts that you're doing, that you're kind of using all of those skills just that aligned to being a soloist? And part of that, number one, is understanding the difference between just cooperating with a team member and then actually collaborating with a team member. Because I can sit next to Jessica and Al and we can all work individually on something, but that doesn't get us any further if we were doing separate things on a separate project. It could be the same. So what you need to do is you need to engage your teammates, and you need to do that by asking them questions, asking for help when you're confused, asking for a different perspective on something to make sure that you're on the right track to whatever that larger deliverable is, because the sum of all of your work is going to be greater when it has a similar theme, it's more cohesive, and it's always aligning to whatever that larger goal of the team or the organization is. So I think the first piece is transferring all of that individual power that you bring to the table and making it known that you need to collaborate with other team members. And also, you need to understand how you're all accountable for that final deliverable. I know, Jess, you spoke about accountability too. Like, individually, you're in charge of your checklist that needs to get done, but then whatever comes up, whatever is needed for the outcome of the team, you need to understand that you all share that and you're all on the hook. So I think that's another part of being a team player, is setting the standard for the rest of your team. And then the other piece of that, being a team player, is you always need to be adaptable and communicative, and also have some empathy when you're working with a lot of different people. I think you'll always work with people no matter your role, and it might be people with different cultural backgrounds, with different experiences than you. You're going to experience people that are from a different generation, and I think that you need to come to the table with an open mind. You need to be flexible and to figure out how to communicate with them and get the best kind of work product out of your team. It's going to take a while to build relationships with these people, but I think it's worth it in the end to make sure that you're all driving towards success, whatever that looks like for your team. So it's really important to be adaptable, take the time to know your team members, and then work together to create whatever it is you're trying to create. And then I think the other piece of things is you need to always zoom out and understand what the vision is for the team, because that does two things. It builds trust for the team, which is so important, because without trust and that credibility piece of the team, you can, fall apart and then only rely on your kind of soloist skills, which in team-based work, it's difficult to get it done if you're all focused on just your scope of work. So building that trust early on can really look very different depending on what the work is. Like I said earlier, it can be as simple as saying, hey, I'm working on this and I'd love to get your help on it. I'd love to hear your perspective. That goes a long way to show a teammate that you trust them and you understand that their perspective what is number one different from yours, but number two can also help you create a better outcome. So I think that's really important to understand how to build trust with your team early on, because that's also going to make the whole team want everyone on the team to be successful in the end. And then the last piece, I want to switch gears a little bit to show or discuss how to be an effective team leader. I think something that's different about being a team leader is understanding that your role is going to evolve and change over time. And Al, you mentioned this in the beginning. And I'd love to hear, Jess, your thoughts on this too, is even though you might have a specific set of roles and responsibilities within the team, if you want to step up and be a leader, you have to understand that your role is going to change based on the needs of the team. You could be doing strategy one week early on in the project, and then the next week the needs of the team is they need somebody managing financials, and you have to jump in and help the team because you know that's going to drive you towards success in the end. So even though that's not in your scope, it might be what the team needs. And I think that's important to know up front that, hey, this is something I really am invested in the success of this entire team. And even though it's not written down that I own this, I know that I can be flexible and adaptable and transfer my skills to help the team get towards the end result, whatever that goal is at the end of the team. So I think I want to turn it over to the both of you, especially to talk about that last part and maybe hear about some experiences where you had a specific set of roles and responsibilities on a team. And I want to hear about how they evolved and how that ultimately led to the success of maybe a project or engagement that you were a part of.
To me, there's two elements to this. So you want to get like kind of practical and storytelling here. Here's the first thing. If I'm an early career professional, or frankly, if I'm just a new person in an organization, to your point, hey, I need a little bit of help. Can I come to you for a question? Well, you know what? Somebody who has previous credibility, meaning a more legacy or heritage employee, even if they haven't been around at the organization for a long time, they might have a career that has a certain experience with it, right? So they almost come with a level of credibility out of the box because they've been around a while. Now, nobody on this team necessarily subscribes to experience only. That's for sure. It's about expertise as well. But what can be daunting to an early career professional is, well, what do I ask? I don't know. Sometimes I don't even know where to begin. So, and if you bring that to a veteran or heritage employee or your leader, a lot of times people look down on that. Like, you don't even know where to begin. Why do I need to invest in you to tell you? So a little bit of a practical strategy for anybody, but especially for an early career professional, we'll give you a little secret here. Practical example. Ask who, what, when, where, why, and how questions. You will be stunned, even if your question is rudimentary, how much people will open up to you when you ask those questions. So I need a little bit of help, but I really don't know where to begin. Who does that currently today? Well, why do they do it that way? When or how often do we do that? Where do we do that? How do we do that? Why is it important? Where can I go for more info? Who's the subject matter expert or the lead on that? I have no clue what we're talking about, but I asked simple, pointed questions that almost fake your expertise and people will respond to you on that. They really will respond. So that's the number one consideration for you for practical advice on if you're a little shaky, you're a little nervous, you're not sure where to begin, just begin with those simple, most basic questions. You can't go wrong with that. Jessica, let me turn it over to you for a little bit more.
I want to expand on something, Bridget, that you said, because you mentioned the importance of empathy and that ability to connect with the people that you're working with to be an effective team player. And it made me think about the importance of emotional intelligence, because emotional intelligence helps you to read the room and really understand other people's emotions and then respond appropriately and with empathy, because you'll have more information. So that really creates trust between, I think, the people working together. And as a team leader, the emotional intelligence will help you read between the lines, read the room, understand what people actually mean. What are they really saying behind the words coming out of their mouth? And so, as a leader, you'll have a better understanding of when to step in, when to step back, when to shift gears entirely. Because Bridget, you said that being able to adapt because your role's fluid and it's constantly changing, emotional intelligence will help you do that, because I think you'll have a better read on the situation.
I agree with you. And having that instinct or ability to interpret or perceive people's emotions is really important, and sometimes can be difficult, especially when you're, new to a job or new to a team. And I want to go back to what Al said, those questions, those simple questions that you can ask people, depending on how they answer, can tell you a lot about a person too, and help you, understand them better and have more empathy for them, and will build that trust. So I think those two, answers that the two of you provided tie in really nicely. And I think something else too that I want to talk about is early on in your career, it can be kind of scary or daunting to feel like you don't know what's going on, and you don't want to ask questions or reach out to somebody to learn more about them, because you feel like you should know everything about the job coming in or about the project that you're working on. And I think as soon as you can kind of get over that by asking those seemingly simple questions, it'll help you become a more trusted team member, and it will build your credibility, because, at one point, everyone else on the team was new to the team, and you can just, supercharge your experience by getting all of those questions not out of the way, but starting early on, so everybody knows what kind of team player you are, and then you can go execute on the task at hand.
One other, I think that's a great point. And I don't think I mentioned this when I was talking about the importance of being a soloist, but being a soloist and working, independently does not mean in a box, and does not mean that you can't go ask people for help and leverage your resources. It means you own it and you're driving the effort, but, do what you need to do to be successful, and lean on the people around you and use your resources.
Even when you're talking about a soloist, and something I like that you said earlier, Jess, is how you as a leader can enable the soloist. And it really is about instilling trust and ownership early on in whatever task you're giving to your team that you're expecting them to execute on, and letting them know, I know we've said this on our team before, you're here for a reason. We already trust you. We already know that you're smart. We already know that you're going to do a great job. So just reminding the teammates that you're here for a reason, and you're smart and you're capable, and we're here to support you if you need the help. But we already know that you're a fantastic soloist and you're going to do a great job. So I think that part too, enabling your team to be a great soloist, is a great call out.
for an early career professional, though, is I heard everything that you said. Like, hey, and that sounds great, but guess what? Like, if I go for it with a ton of ambition, people say pump the brakes, stay in your lane, early career professional. One. Two, if you do go and execute and you go hit a home run and you're doing great, there's a certain level of like humility that you need to balance with that, right? Because nobody would like the opposite of that either. Like, oh, really good, but yeah, I got a bit of a big head on them, kind of thing. And then the third is that interdependence of being able to work in that team environment successfully, given, as you had said, like your role evolves and changes. You can still be a soloist, but your role evolves and changes. You execute on it, you deliver with quality, you grow your trust, and opportunity and growth comes from it. So just an example from not too long ago, a project where we were working on, and an early career professional, we were given the opportunity to them because they had earned it to go lead a work stream in a project. Now, the first thing that maybe you would say is like, well, now what's the team look like? Well, the team complexion was a mix of multi-generational team members, technical, not technical, whatever that means in our context or for you, and people from certainly diverse, actually a global team, diverse backgrounds. Well, that enough, I guess, is probably like pretty rough, right? That's a pretty big menu that you need to be able to eat a lot of. But the last part of that even more is that leader was inexperienced. So they didn't have a ton of experience, but they had the following kinds of expertise. They were a brilliant soloist, and they understood what needed to get done, at least in general terms. They allowed the subject matter experts to go be the subject matter experts. They themselves provided a level of service to them, like, how can I help you, right? Who, what, when, where, why, how questions. How can I help you be successful in the project? Why are we doing it like this? Why are we executing the project like this? They have no clue, right? They have no clue. But why are we executing it like this? And you know what the answer is? And you know what the answer will be so many times? Is what? Can you guess?
Because it's the way it's always been done.
Because it's the way it's always been done. It opens a door for that person now to come in with humility and say, well, have you thought of, or understood, and there's an opportunity for you then to improve. So even as an early career leader, where you don't have all of that expertise, you can still leverage all the tools at your disposal. Now, furthering the example real quick, the next part of that is they also have to deal with a customer who's a heritage leader and looks at them and says, well, wait a minute, I'm investing a lot of time, energy, and money in you, and you probably don't have enough experience for this. Well, yes and no. Great. We don't have a whole lot of experience, perhaps, in that certain area. But if we deliver on the promises that we've made, then will you be happy? Or would you just be happy with the experience that we have? They would be happy, certainly, with you delivering on the promise, showing expertise. The last thing is we do what's needed. Interdependence, right? We're dependent upon each other, as you both had indicated. Well, you know what? Sometimes that's not just showing yourself like, hey, I'm the leader. You know what? Sometimes it's just serving the rest of the team. Are you still the leader? You sure are. You sure are. But everybody understands that the role you play evolves and changes because all you're trying to do is make everyone else successful. And candidly, isn't that the definition of being a great leader? Is helping everyone else be successful. Because if you help everyone else be successful, and to your point, like we're on the same page, we're aligned, we're going after the same goal, wow, that's success. That's instant credibility. And now your trust grows, right? That's how you can balance that ambition of, I really want to go for this, but I'm a little nervous. That humility of like, well, some things are going right, maybe some things aren't going right. How do I move myself forward? And then depending upon the team, without showing perhaps your lack of experience, but definitely showing your expertise to thrive. I have a question for the two of you, frankly. So as being people who are on also leaders, but are also early career professionals, how do you balance that opportunity and growth for you as an individual, while at the same team, in other words, being a brilliant soloist, but at the same time being the leader, whether you have the title or you don't have the title? Talk a little bit about that, if you would.
I think for me personally, I get a lot of satisfaction and pride out of seeing a team that I'm a part of succeed. And I know that I can, number one, contribute to the team, but I can also set my team up for success. So, depending on what the nature of the project or the team is, success will look different. But if I can nudge somebody and say, hey, I know that this person will have an answer for you, and they're successful and they get to accomplish the goal of the two of them, I take pride in that as a team player, like while I'm doing my soloist thing over here, because I know that my team is working together really well. And I know that both of those team members got something out of that experience. One person got to share, one person got to learn, and then they created whatever they needed to for the outcome. So that's one example, Al, of how I feel like I myself balance, doing what I need to do for the team, but then also, something that makes me tick.
Completely agree, Bridget, that someone else's success is my success. So I find a lot of satisfaction in someone else on the team doing really well. But I think that is part of the culture that starts at the top. And as a leader, you need to kind of set as the expectation. So you're going to have people on your team who have their own individual goals, and you should know what success looks like for them and be aligned to their goals. But you should also make sure that everyone is on the same page about what success looks like for the group and the team as a whole. And with that aligned purpose and kind of that one vision. I think at the end of the day, when you have that really healthy, uplifting culture, it's like everyone celebrates everyone's successes and we're all on the same page about what our goals are and where we're heading. It leads to a very supportive environment.
I want to talk about the other side of that too. Like if you don't feel like you have that culture fit and at the top you're not getting what you need to out of your team, I think you can also do kind of a grassroots approach and model the type of behavior that you would like to see on your team. And that can look, however you want it to look, but that's also another way to make some change on a team when you don't have the benefit of everyone being on the same page. You can do really small things like shout out your team members, recognize them for their hard work, whatever that looks like. And I think that's another way you can try to shift the culture if you don't have that, that good feeling right off the bat.
Modeling great behavior is a great call out. Why? Because I get a lot of times early career professionals will say to me, well, I don't know what good looks like. I just don't know what good is. Isn't this the way it's supposed to be? The answer to that, so often that I offer, is you might not know what good looks like. I guarantee you, you know what bad looks like, though. When you're feeling it and you're living that, like on a daily basis, you know you don't feel good about it. Right? So you might not even know all the signs of what good is, but man, if you're feeling the bad, got it. You just need to do, then practical advice. Just do the opposite of that. Model that good behavior. Strange. A lot of people will say, and I heard what you said, Jessica, about culture and, kind of starting at the top in leadership. And you're 100% right. In a great environment, it's got to start at the top. There's no doubt about it. The grassroots part that you're talking about is for our early career professional colleagues. Use that energy, use that lack of experience that other people seem to value more than expertise. Use that and say, hey, you know what? This is to me, this is what good looks like. Model that good behavior exactly as you said. And even if it doesn't catch on from a cultural standpoint, it still builds to the individual's credibility. Like, wow, you know what? They handle themselves in a professional way. They're happy to be here. At least you're showing that you're happy to be here, and you're shouting out others and doing so in a positive way. And your work is a reflection of that. Maybe you can shift culture. Maybe you can't shift culture. Maybe you don't feel like you're being seen or you're being heard. But the point is that when you exhibit that kind of behavior, both as a soloist and as a team player, people do see it and they do want you to be a part of it. So even if you can't change that culture, people will want you to be a part of that team. And then ultimately that'll be up to you to say, hey, how much and how far can I grow here, given the tips and tricks and practical advice that we're providing here? Then you can go from there and be the master or mistress of your own career and where it takes you. You know what I mean? Yeah. Cool. This was great. Thank you both very, very much for your expertise. I learned something every single time we're together. And I know our audience watching and listening out there also is learning something every single time also. And even if they're experiencing it for the first time, practical advice and your voice that you're giving to our friends and family out there is just absolutely wonderful. And so I know everybody appreciates it very much. Jessica, I'll turn over to you for any final comments.
I think just, carry all of this with you moving forward in your career. Master what you can independently, what's in your control, own it and be confident in it. Lean on the people around you to be successful and, know what it means to collaborate with your team effectively and want to connect with them, because they're only going to make you stronger. And so value their input and want to learn from the people around you. It's only going to make you stronger as a soloist.
Thanks everybody for joining. See you.